The PlayStation Store is running its games under $15 sale, and we'll take it one step further. In this video, I'm going to be taking a look at 10 great deals under the price of $5, so these are super cheap games. If you've got a couple of bucks left over from a PlayStation Store wallet code or whatever the deal is, if you just want something on the super cheap, you'll be able to do so with these 10 titles, and they're all pretty good. We'll probably take a look at games under the price of $10 at some point, but without further ado, let's get right into it, and I want to kick things off with Rayman Legends, which is 75% off for $4.99. I loved Rayman Origins when it came out back in like 2012, 2013, and Rayman Legends, in my opinion, is an even better game. And Rayman, the traditional games do not get their just due from Ubisoft. I don't know what the deal is, if they just don't sell well enough or whatever it is, but these are awesome platformers with a great visual style that still stand the test of time, because if you go into it today, you'll still be like, whoa, it's a very colorful game and it's a very enjoyable platformer that really anybody can play. Has a level of challenge to it as well, and just an excellent platformer for just $5, $4.99. Next up, we have Tomb Raider, the Definitive Edition, which is 85% off for $2.99. I imagine the majority of you guys have played Tomb Raider at this stage of the game, but if you have not, man, you really need to jump in on the Tomb Raider trilogy, because I think these games are absolutely awesome, and I would really recommend you to play all three of them, and I'm sure there's going to be more Tomb Raider titles in the future. But we got the three games with Tomb Raider, Rise of the Tomb Raider, and then Shadow of the Tomb Raider. Tomb Raider kicks it off really well. Obviously, there's often comparisons made with Uncharted, but Tomb Raider did start off first. It's just a very well-made game, and it's not like it's that lengthy. If you honestly want to dedicate an entire evening to it, you could probably complete it in one sitting, and it's a great time the whole way through. And for $3, I think it's a solid pickup. And it still looks pretty darn good, even in 2021, and this came out back, I want to say, in 2013 with the original edition. Next up, we have Little Nightmares, 75% off for $4.99. Little Nightmares 2 is also on sale right now as a part of the weekly deal, but I've been talking of Little Nightmares for a long time. This was done by Tarsier Studios and published by Bandai Namco, and this is one of Bandai Namco's titles that goes a little bit under the radar. It's a very, very dark, adventure platformer, I want to say. I don't know how to exactly describe it, but it definitely has that horror element, and it definitely immerses you into the world as well. And it didn't release at a full price point. It was a budget release, but I always really, really enjoyed this game, and I was super excited when Little Nightmares 2 was announced. And Little Nightmares 2 is also really good, but play the first one, and because it's only $4.99, and that could be a good gateway into the series. Next up, we have Saints Row 4 Re-Elected. This is 75% off for $4.99. Saints Row is kind of wild. Saints Row 1 and 2 kind of adopted one presentation style and, you know, style of gameplay, and then Saints Row 3 just decided to be like, yo, let's just go balls to the walls, and that's really resonated with a lot of gamers, and Saints Row 4 kind of followed up though with it. If you're going into Saints Row expecting some emotional and engaging narrative, obviously that is not what you're getting out of here. What you're getting is an over-the-top, super zany, open-world action title, but it's a lot of fun. If you just want to, like, mentally check out for a while and just enjoy a no-nonsense video game, that's exactly what you get out of Saints Row 4. Visuals aren't anything to write home about, but it works well enough, and again, if you want something that doesn't take itself too seriously, $4.99, I think for Re-Elected is pretty darn good. Next up, here's another game I always go to bat for, and if you guys haven't played it, please do yourself a favor and pick it up. Sleeping Dogs, the Definitive Edition, is 85% off for $4.49. Often compared or said to be, you know, Grand Theft Auto in Hong Kong. It is so much more than that. It's really not like Grand Theft Auto at all. Yes, it's in an open world. Yes, it's got that crime element, but it's a much more contained open world, and it has a much bigger focus on the hand-to-hand combat that works really, really well. And you've got a pretty darn gritty story in here as well. Great main character, very bloody, very gruesome, but a very solid story overall. And all the characters are really good, but the main character, Wei, is awesome. And visually, it holds up well. And by the way, this is the Definitive Edition, so it's got a ton of DLC added onto it. And just looking at that price point, $4.49 is ridiculous. I bought the original edition of this game the day it came out for $60, and I had a great time with it. Thought it was a tremendous game back then, and even to this day, pick it up. You're gonna have a good time with it, and hopefully one day, me pestering Square Enix about it, and everybody pestering Square Enix about it, will get a legitimate follow-up to this game, because I think it absolutely deserves one. Next up, might be a little bit of a weird recommendation, but if you want a fighting game that's good on the cheap, Injustice Gods Among Us Ultimate Edition is $4.99. Now, you might be thinking, what about Injustice 2? Well, yeah, you can get Injustice 2, but it's quite a bit more expensive, so if you want to get something on the cheap, if you just want a fighting game that you can enjoy with a couple of friends, $4.99 for this is still pretty good. I've often said I'm not big into fighting games from a competitive standpoint anymore. That kind of left me back in like 2009, 2010, 2011, around that time range, but I still enjoy my fair share of fighting games, especially, you know, inviting friends over and enjoying games that way, fighting games in particular, and Injustice I thought was a pretty good one. Now, Injustice 2, again, is a better game, but if you want something on the cheap, if you want a fighting game that's still of quality and has some very notable characters, I think you're gonna dig Injustice, especially for the price you're paying here. $4.99 I think is a solid pickup. Next up, Life is Strange is 80% off for $3.99. The game done by Don't Nod Entertainment. I could talk about Life is Strange for a long time. Some people absolutely love Life is Strange, other people don't like it as much. I thought Life is Strange was a very, very compelling game that tackled a lot of mature thematics that you're seeing being covered in games more and more these days, but bear in mind, Life is Strange came out all the way back in like early 2015 or maybe late 2014, so it's been out for a very long time. But again, it's got a great story and it does tackle some very mature themes. Now, the story does go a little bit awry by, I want to say, episode 4. I think episode 4 was when I started getting a little disconnected with it. But that's going to be a lot of personal opinion on how you wanted to see the story unfold, so I'll let you guys make your decision on that. But for $3.99, this is a game that I think everybody should at least give a chance to, and right here, you're not taking a big risk with the amount of money you're spending. Give it a shot, see how you like it, especially if you do like these episodic games with a big focus on the story. Next up, we have Just Cause 3, 85% off for $2.99. You can get the XXL edition for $4.49. Whichever route you go, Just Cause 3, much like Saints Row 4, is a no-nonsense open-world action title. Just Cause 3, however, has a bigger focus on the explosions because you're going to be blowing just about everything up, but this is another open world title that you can kind of check out. You're not going to be like emotionally invested into Rico Rodriguez. I don't know, maybe Rico Rodriguez will end up being your favorite video game character of all time. I'm going to highly doubt that, but it's a lot of action and it's a lot of fun, and it's really focused in on the action. Grappling hooks, swinging around, tons of different weapons. That element of the game is a ton of fun, and for $2.99, it's such a cheap entry point that I would highly, highly recommend it. Again, if you want a game that you can kind of mentally check out and just have a good time and not get super, super invested into everything that's going on. Next up, I'm a big fan of shoot-em-ups, and I wanted to give a shout to Geometry Wars 3 Dimensions Evolved. I was a big fan of Geometry Wars back when I originally played the one that was on like the Xbox Live Arcade for 400 Microsoft points. Yeah, we're going back quite a while, but Geometry Wars has some great presentation effects, great particle effects, pretty good music, and if you want a quality shoot-em-up on the cheap, I think you're gonna dig Geometry Wars 3 quite a bit. $4.94 for it is pretty good. There is quite a bit of competition in the shoot-em-up market these days. I mean, there's a lot of really good shoot-em-ups, but I think Geometry Wars is still a pretty good one, and for $4.94, this one makes sense. Lastly, if you want to get a game that you can play with a couple of friends, I would really recommend Magicka II to you guys. Magicka was a game where I played the original on PC, and then I ultimately played Magicka II as well, but this is a game that if you could get a group of 4 people together, or just a group of people in general, you know, 2 to 4 people, get a couple of beers, get some vodka, whatever you need to do, you can have an awesome time with Magicka. People are gonna go absolutely crazy, killing each other, and it's just a great time in Magicka 2, but it really is the most fun if you do play with friends. Like, yeah, you can play it solo, and you can have an okay time, but Magicka 2 and Magicka in general, you really should play with friends, and again, it is such an enjoyable cooperative experience going through the game. And for $3.74, you know, talk to some of your friends. If they're down for a fun co-op game, this is one that I would strongly recommend. But that's gonna wrap up this one, guys. Again, these are all games under the price of $5, so we were kind of limited in the selection, but these are still great games, and you can get them super cheap. Again, if you have a couple bucks left over from a PlayStation wallet code or something like that, a lot of these would be good pickups and a lot of variety in the options as well. That's going to conclude this one. Sound off with all of your thoughts in the comment section down below. Thank you for watching, and goodbye.